Hi everybody and welcome to another video where we go through the psychology of human misjudgment, a talk given by Charlie Munger from a book that I very much like, Poor Charlie's Almanack. And why are these principles so important to learn? They are used in manipulation, so we want to learn them so that other people cannot manipulate us into doing things that is good for them but not for us. So in that way we can make smarter decisions. If we can make smarter decisions, we will have a better quality of life. We will avoid big mistakes in our finances, with our business, in our relationships, with our health. So if we can apply these principles, we should be able to have a more high quality life. So why I'm teaching it to you is because when I'm teaching it, I'm learning them myself. I'm pounding in the message myself. And hopefully you can get one or two ideas that can help you to have a high quality life yourself when watching these videos. So today we're going through envy, jealousy, tendency. And then that's number 8. We will also go through number 9, reciprocation tendency. So Warren Buffett has said that it is not greed that drives the world, but it is actually envy. And what does he mean by that? I think he means that most people think that it's greed, that we want more, and we want to, have more money, have more, bigger house, more food and nicer cars or like this. But I think what he says is that it's envy. We see our neighbor has a bigger house, and then our kids and our wives say, I also want a bigger house, and then we feel that we need to move into a bigger house or have a more beautiful car or have nicer clothes or so on and so on. So Charlie Munger, he has an interesting point where envy and jealousy came from. And he thinks that it's when we were hunter-gatherers and we lived in a world where food was scarce, it was difficult to survive, and if we were rewarded for eating when we saw food, basically, to gather calories for survival. So if we saw a neighbor or someone else in the possession of food, we had a strong urge to eat that, but we couldn't because it wasn't ours. So Charlie Munger, he thinks that's the actual origin of envy and jealousy. And this is a principle or tendency that can actually create quite a lot of problems for us, because let's say there are a few employees in a company. One employee, he learns that the other ones have a higher salary than him, or that one employee has a much higher salary than him. So that will probably cause him to be envious of the other employee, and maybe he will even hate that employee and start to talk behind that employee's back, for example. So you see here how envy made him to do a stupid thing, rather than going to him and asking, what can I learn from you so that I also can have a higher compensation for my work? That would be the smart thing to do. But because of the envy, he was tricked into doing stupid things. And Charlie, he says that even though this is so evident and so alive in today's society, it is very rarely talked about, because it has so much taboo in it. We don't want to admit that we have envy, but it is very much alive in society. So let's take one example of a dysfunctional family. Let's say a mother has 3 children. 2 of them she expresses a lot of love and admiration for, but not the 3rd one. So this might trigger a lot of envy and jealousy in that child, which maybe make him or her hate the other siblings. Or in order to try to get more love and attention from the mom, she might start to try to do more favors for the mother, or do more things for her, and much more than the other ones. So you can see now how this mother can start to manipulate this child to do all these sorts of favors and things for her by actually withholding love and admiration for this child. And then the child will think that, okay, I'm not as good as the other ones, so I need to compensate by by expressing more love, doing more favors for the mother. And you see how this can become a spiral. And that could be in other relationships too, like a dysfunctional love relationship, or in a boss with employees, for example. So you want to pay attention so you're not exposed to that type of manipulation and fall for this trick. We also want to be careful to evoke envy or jealousy in other people, because it can trigger some dangerous behaviors in other people. For example, I heard a story about one man. He owed another man money for a payment for something, for a business deal. But the man had postponed the payment. They were sitting around a dinner table with more friends and drinking and eating. And that person who owed the other friend money, he started boasting and talking about how well his business was doing in front of the others, or in front of another friend. And this evoked so much envy in the person who he owed money to, so that he started to become violent towards the other person. He actually tried to strangle the person. So you see here how, by him trying to be popular among his friends and talk about how well he was doing, he actually made himself target for envy from the other person. Well, maybe would have been smarter to just pay him when he should have, and this would not have happened. You see, I'm not judging this situation. I'm just saying what happened, and probably he should have paid the guy up front when he should have, but it was even more stupid to later then talk among other friends so that the other person could hear how well his business was doing, how much money he had, and so on, which evoked a lot of envy and jealousy in him. You can also see if you start to do well among your peer group, and you kind of get ahead among your peers. So there was one particular incident in my 20s where I started working with a very leading voice coach from the US, a very expensive one, because I wanted to learn the best principles regarding the human voice and how this person was teaching. Then I made some interviews and videos and posted online, and one friend from school that I knew, he saw those, and he wrote a message to me and asked, I also want to take lessons from this person. It took some time before I think I forgot the message, where I didn't or I hadn't seen the actual message until he wrote back a few days later again. Then he was super angry because I had not replied. And he wrote a long angry message like, just because you're doing so well, and don't want to share with your success, and don't want to help out your friend, or something like this. And I just had forgotten the message, so I just wrote back to him and sent a link to the website where you can book. That was already open to everyone, like in a nice, polite way back. But you see here, when someone in a peer group starts to do well, rather than the others actually becoming interested and want to learn from them, they start to resent that person, or express negativity or hatred towards that person, because they get envious. So, and I don't have any negative feelings about this person. I just saw that feeling took him over and made him do a stupid thing. So you want to pay attention so that that's not you. So it would be much smarter to look up to these people that are doing well around you, and spend more time with them and see how you can learn from them. We can also see a lot of that in social media, where people get envious and express hate towards people that they don't know in comments, just because they get envious, they get taken over by envy, and the only way they can express something is by hatred, or trying to pull that person down. So be careful so you don't fall for this tendency, and be careful so that other people don't use it in order to manipulate you. So let's go into the number 9, reciprocation tendency. And this is a very powerful one. And this one is very important to learn, because you want to make sure that you have it on your side, so to speak, and that other people are not using this on you. And it's very important to learn to look out for this one, so that You can have it working in your favor and not against you. So I talked about this principle or this tendency when I made a video about Warren Buffett, how he uses this principle, because he uses it, and I will dig into that a little bit later. But it basically means that we're very likely to return favors to others. So investor Monish Pabrai, he has an interesting theory about where this comes from. He says that when we were hunter-gatherers and we had success in our hunting, we had taken down a mammoth, for example, there was no refrigerators back then. So we maybe had only 24 hours before this meat would go bad. So where did we store all of this meat? Well, the way that happened was that we invited all the friends or all the neighbors to a big feast. So we stored it in the bellies of our neighbors as goodwill. Because then we knew that when they had success in their hunting, they would do the same for us. They would return this favor. And this behavior got rewarded by evolution, because then we were much more likely to survive. And also probably that when we started to do favors for others, we created bonds with other people, and it also helped to make sure that we survived. And this same principle works today. It is so strong in us, and that we don't even think about it. So Monish Pabrai, he makes the example of Hare Krishna, the religious group. They would go to airports, and one guy in these yellow or orange robes, he would offer a free flower to people. So they would see who looked like business executives and approach them and insist that they take this free gift of a flower. So, and he said, no, I don't want, but I insist you take this free gift, just take it. And so the business executive would take the free gift, the flower, and then later on, another member of the Hare Krishna would approach the same person because they saw he had a flower in his hand. And then they would ask for a donation. So just because he had received a free gift at first, they found that he was much more likely to donate, and he donated more if he had taken the flower. So you see how they use this reciprocation principle or tendency in order to get donations for their organization. We can also see this in Swedish or Nordic history, that Vikings, they used to offer golden rings to people in order to increase kind of their influence in society and make allies among other people. So they also use this principle of giving gifts, and because then they knew that they would get their loyalty or favors in the future. And I mean, today it's still so powerful that it's illegal to give too big gifts, because they can be looked as bribery, as that you want big favors in return. And Monish Pabrai, he shares in one video that he used to send out beautiful pens to prospects who were interested in investing in his investment fund. So it was not these simple free gift pens. It was more $100 beautiful pen that people would keep, and they would love to use it. So whenever they would use this pen, they would think about Monish and that investment that they should make in his investment fund. And so this was also a very smart way of using the reciprocation tendency. But the same actually is true for disfavors, because let's say there are some guys in a bar and they are getting drunk. One guy punches the other one. Most certainly the other guy will punch back to return the punch. And then a big fight maybe starts. So, and we can see this between countries as well, that if one country attacks another, then they will most likely respond to that attack in the same or a worse manner. We can see that in the case where one employee is mistreated, he might go back and try to hurt the company in some way. We can also see if a customer or a group of customers has a negative experience with one company, then they will probably tell all of their friends about how bad this company is, or write negative reviews or so on. So we want to make sure not to intentionally or unintentionally hurt other people or start fights, because it will come back at us. We will never have the last word. Someone else will always try to have the last word or try to do even worse things back. So stay out of this. We also want to try to avoid legal battles. Charlie, he writes in the book that one of his father's friends or customers, Grant McFadden, I think that was his name, he would be so smart in business, because if he would be involved, he would find himself in a business deal or any type of business with a psychopath or someone. He would just politely find the first exit out of the deal and then go on to do something else, you know. But then the father, in his legal practice, he also had another customer, and he did so much more work for this person because he was a legal minefield. He had so many fights with other people, and it was, provided so much work for them. And Charlie, he asked his father, why don't you work more for this lovely man, Grant McFadden? And the father said, well, basically he treats his customers right. He knows how to treat people. He don't start fights with people. And that's why he has so little legal problems. But this other person, he's a minefield. He creates fights and creates so many problems. So Charlie said he made sure to try to be more like Grant McFadden in when doing business. So in what else situation is it important to think about this principle, this tendency? Well, if you're in a negotiation of a deal or with someone, and they offer you a free lunch, for example, and try to give you something for free, well, then it will be so difficult for you to make a good buying decision or a good transaction in that deal, because he has created goodwill with you that you need to now return. And I think even in the book, Charlie Munger, he mentions Sam Walton, who created the founder of Walmart, that he made a rule that the buyers in his company, the people who were in charge of buying decisions, they were not allowed to accept free gifts from vendors, because he knew that would mess with their mind and they would get a so much worse deal for their company. Imagine if they were negotiating purchase decisions for all of Walmart, for example. It's so big deal. And then the vendor offers the person in charge of the purchase decision, free lunch or something. It's so tiny gift in comparison to this deal. That could make them lose millions, because the person in charge of the purchase decision would feel that they would need to return the deal and maybe make the deal with them, or they would not negotiate so good, for example. So Sam Walton, he knew this, so he made sure that they were not allowed to take free gifts from the vendors. Other ways we can use this principle is looking at how Warren Buffett, for example, how he uses the principle. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I will talk about how Warren Buffett uses this principle. So one day, Monish Pabrai, the investor, he receives a letter from Warren Buffett, letter signed by Warren Buffett, and Warren Buffett was saying that how impressed he was with Monish Pabrai's foundation, Dakshana. Monish Pabrai, he has a foundation in India where they find very intelligent children, very, very intelligent children that are born in very poor families, that they would never by themselves be able to develop their intelligence and reach their full potential, because they are not in that environment. So he basically has a system where they scan all of India for these children. They train them in their school so that they can apply for one of the finest schools in India. And after they have gone to this school, many of them get super good jobs. For example, someone has worked in Google and they have a very high success rate. So he's created a very, very efficient way of using money and get a really high return on investment socially, rather than just giving money to some big charitable organization. He has created a system where they really, really help people, like they're teaching people how to fish rather than giving people fish. So Warren writes about this in an appreciation letter to Monish Pabrai, who receives the letter. Why does Warren Buffett do this? So he's an old man, so he doesn't have so much time left. So why does he take time out of his schedule rather than working in Berkshire Hathaway, spending time with family, reading financial statements or something else that would maybe be more important. I think Warren Buffett does this out of the reciprocation tendency. I think that he writes several of these letters each week and takes the time to send them and to different people, because he knows that probably they will be super happy receiving a letter from him. They will probably frame it, put it in their office so all of their friends see that letter as well. So Warren Buffett, he wants to buy great businesses to invest in. So maybe one of these people that receives one of these letters knows about a business that is for sale. And who will they then recommend buying this business? They will say, you should talk to Warren Buffett because he's such a great guy. So he basically wants to create goodwill that comes back to him in the future. Or just people recommending others to invest in Berkshire Hathaway. So if Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, does this, probably we should do the same. Because it kind of amplifies everything else we're already doing and helps us. It also relates to Mohnish Pabrai. He talks about a book describing individuals as takers, matchers, and givers, where givers are generous people who want to give and don't think about getting anything back. And he basically says that if you want to be successful, you want to be a giver. So it's basically people who give generously around them, and you want to spend time with other givers, and you also want to be a giver yourself. So that generosity really works well. It's a super good rule in society. I also think that gifts can be a wonderful insurance for your own mistakes, because in business or in life, we will do mistakes. But if we then have goodwill built up with others, if we have given gifts and been a generous person towards others, our friends, customers, so on, then they will be more forgiving for the mistakes we do. So, but if we are on the edge or don't have any goodwill built up, maybe then they won't be so forgiving. So I think it's a great way to both make sure that you kind of invest in your own future when you're doing this. You're helping your future self by being generous towards other people. So if everyone was more generous, it would really make sense. It would really be good. So I think it's a good activity to be involved in. So let's summarize this last principle. We want to make sure to use reciprocation tendency. We want to be generous towards other people because that might come back to us in the future. And we also want to make sure to not fall for being manipulated by other people. So be careful accepting gifts from people who maybe give you a small gift and then want something big in return, like a employer who gives a small gift to the employees instead of raising their salary, for example, and then the employees still feel happy, but it would have been more logical to have a salary increase, for example. So make sure to have this in your tool belt, so to speak, and to use it so it goes well for you, and so be more generous towards other people. So if there's some background noise outside, I'm in Brazil, that's why. So sometimes there are some exotic birds or something flying by, so you know what's going on. Hope it works anyway, and I hope you can take one or two ideas out of these principles and use so that you can have a better quality of life, making fewer stupid mistakes, more intelligent ones, and in that way increase the quality of your life. So enjoy.